The phone call came on a Tuesday afternoon, just as I finished installing the last of the hand-carved kitchen cabinets that had taken me 3 weeks to complete. "Tina, this is your mother," she said, her voice colder than I had ever heard it. "Your father and I have decided. You have 48 hours to get your stuff out of the house. It belongs to your sister Jessica now." I gripped the counter I had just installed yesterday, my knuckles turning white. 6 months of renovation work, $50,000 of my own money, all gone in a single phone call. I didn't argue or cry. Something in me went very still instead. "I understand," I said quietly, already calculating what to do next. She hung up without saying goodbye. I stood in the kitchen for what felt like hours, surrounded by the evidence of my labor. Every surface in this house had been touched by my hands over the past 6 months. The hardwood floors I had sanded and refinished myself. The walls I had stripped of 7 layers of wallpaper and repainted in soft, welcoming colors. The plumbing I had learned to fix through countless YouTube tutorials. All of it done, with the understanding that this house would eventually be mine. This wasn't just any house. My grandparents had built it in the 1960s, and I had grown up visiting them here every Sunday for dinner. When they moved to Florida, my parents took over the property, but never really maintained it. By the time my marriage to Jake fell apart 6 months ago, the house had been sitting empty for almost 2 years, falling into disrepair. "You need a project to keep your mind off the divorce," my father had said, handing me the keys. "Fix it up. Make it yours. We're getting too old to deal with it anyway." Those words had been a lifeline when I was drowning in grief over my failed 8-year marriage. I poured everything into this house, my savings, my time, and pieces of my heart that were still intact. Now my parents wanted to give it all to Jessica. I picked up my phone and called Martha, my parents' next-door neighbor, who had known our family for decades. "Oh, honey," Martha sighed after I explained what happened. "I was afraid of this. Your sister has been visiting your parents 3 times a week for the past 2 months, always when you're not around." "What has she been telling them?" I asked, though I already had a sinking feeling. "That you're unstable after the divorce. That you've been having wild parties in the house, damaging things. She brought some man with her who claimed to be a contractor, saying you'd ruined the plumbing and electrical systems." I nearly dropped the phone. While Jessica had been spreading these lies, I had been working 12-hour days on the house, often going to bed with my muscles aching and hands blistered from the work. "But that's not all," Martha continued, lowering her voice. "I overheard them on their patio yesterday. Jessica needs money fast. She's in debt, gambling debts from what I could gather. She's planning to sell the house immediately." The betrayal hit me like a physical blow. Jessica had always been the favored child, the one who could do no wrong in my mother's eyes particularly. But this level of manipulation was shocking even for her. I tried calling my parents, thinking I could calmly explain the situation. My mother answered and cut me off before I could even begin. "We've made our decision, Tina. If you're not out in 48 hours, we'll call the police to remove you. Your father doesn't want to speak to you right now." That last part stung the most. My father and I had always been close. For him to refuse to even talk to me meant Jessica's poison had spread far and deep. I spent that night in a state of numb shock, trying to figure out what to do. The house was legally in my parents' names as far as I knew. They had the right to give it to whomever they wanted. But the unfairness of it all made my chest tight with anger. Not just the house, but the $50,000 of improvements I'd made with my own money and labor. As the shock began to wear off, determination took its place. I might have to leave, but I wouldn't go quietly into the night. Not this time. The next morning, I began the heartbreaking process of packing my belongings. I had 40 hours left before my parents' deadline expired. With each item I carefully wrapped and boxed, my resolve strengthened. This wasn't just about a house anymore. It was about standing up for myself against a lifetime of Jessica's manipulations. Around midday, I ventured into the attic to collect the few personal items I had stored there. The attic had been one of the first areas I'd cleaned out when I moved in, finding it stuffed with decades of my family's forgotten possessions. In the far corner sat my grandfather's old trunk, which I'd meant to go through but never found the time. Out of a strange sense of nostalgia, I opened it now. Inside were stacks of old photographs, letters, and documents. As I sorted through them, a yellowed envelope caught my attention. Inside was a deed to the house dated 1965, with my grandmother Laura's name on it as the sole owner. Attached was a letter from my grandfather to my grandmother explaining that he had put the house in her name only to protect it from any business liabilities he might incur. I sat back on my heels, my heart pounding. If this document was still valid, the house had never legally belonged to my parents at all. It still belonged to my grandmother, who was now 87 and living in a nursing home across town. I immediately drove to see her. Grandma Laura had always been sharp as a tack, though her physical health had declined in recent years. When I walked into her room, her face lit up. "Tina, what a wonderful surprise. You look troubled, dear." I explained the situation, showing her the deed I'd found. Her expression darkened as I spoke. "Those documents are absolutely valid," she confirmed. "I never transferred ownership to your parents. They've been living there and maintaining the property with my blessing, but the house is still in my name." She reached for my hand. "And I've always wanted you to have it, Tina. I made that clear in my will years ago." She rang for a nurse and asked for her personal files. From them, she withdrew a copy of her will, which indeed specified that the house should go to me upon her death. But Jessica, I started not wanting to speak ill of my sister to my grandmother. "Jessica," Grandma Laura interrupted firmly, "has been trying to get her hands on my assets for years. Did you know she tried to get me to sign over my retirement fund to her 2 years ago? Said she wanted to manage it for me." She shook her head. "When I refused, things got ugly. She hasn't visited me since." This revelation staggered me. I had no idea Jessica had tried to take advantage of our grandmother this way, but it fit the pattern that was emerging. As I drove back to the house, my phone rang. It was Jessica. "Just checking to make sure you're packing," she said, her voice sickly sweet. "Mom and Dad said you agreed to be out by tomorrow evening." "I'm working on it," I replied neutrally. "Good. The new furniture arrives on Friday. I'm having everything you've done ripped out, by the way. Those country-style cabinets gone. That clawfoot tub you restored dumpster. I'm going for a more modern look." Each word was designed to hurt, to twist the knife deeper. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, but kept my voice level. "It's your house now, apparently. Do what you want." There was a pause before Jessica spoke again, her voice dropping to a cruel whisper. "You know I never told you this, but I'm the reason Jake left you." My blood turned to ice. "What are you talking about?" He was so easy to manipulate. All it took was a few fabricated text messages making it look like you were cheating on him. He believed everything I showed him. She laughed. "Men are so stupid." I nearly swerved off the road. "Why would you do that?" "Because you always get everything," she spat, her facade cracking. "Mom and Dad's approval, Grandma's love, the perfect marriage. It wasn't fair. Now I'm getting what I deserve." She hung up, leaving me reeling from this new information. My marriage had ended because of my sister's deliberate sabotage. The pain of that betrayal burned through me, renewing my determination to fight back. When I arrived home, I found my Aunt Susan waiting for me. My mother's younger sister had always been the family rebel, the one who saw through pretenses. "Martha called me," she explained, hugging me tight. "This is outrageous, Tina. I've already tried talking to your mother, but she won't listen to reason. She's always had a blind spot where Jessica is concerned." Susan helped me continue packing while I told her everything I'd discovered. "I'm not surprised," she said grimly. "Your mother and Jessica have always been two peas in a pod, both expert manipulators. I've watched Jessica wrap people around her finger since she was a child." "What should I do about the deed?" I asked. "Don't tell them you found it yet," Susan advised. "Get legal advice first. Jessica is dangerous when cornered." Susan's support meant everything, but it came at a cost to her. The next day, my mother called to inform me that Susan was no longer welcome at family gatherings for taking your side against the family. The family was fracturing before my eyes, and I was at the center of the storm. With 36 hours remaining before the deadline, I called my friend Diane, who worked as a real estate attorney. She agreed to meet me for coffee during her lunch break. "These documents are very interesting," she said, examining the deed and my grandmother's will. "Based on what you've shown me, your grandmother appears to be the legal owner of the house, not your parents. So they can't give it to Jessica." "Technically, no. But challenging this would mean taking your own parents to court, and real estate litigation can drag on for months, even years." Diane looked at me sympathetically. "Are you prepared for that?" I wasn't sure. The thought of suing my own parents made me queasy, but I also couldn't let Jessica steal everything I'd worked for. What about the money I've invested in renovations? I asked. That's easier to address. Take photographs of everything you've done. Get statements from contractors you worked with. We can potentially file for unjust enrichment or quantum meruit to recover the value of your improvements. I spent the rest of the day documenting every renovation I'd completed. Each photograph was a reminder of the care and love I'd put into this house. The custom kitchen island that had taken me 3 weeks to build. The vintage light fixtures I'd rewired by hand. The garden I'd planted, where there had once been only weeds and broken concrete. While I was photographing the master bathroom I'd completely remodeled, I heard voices downstairs. Peering out the window, I saw Jessica's red convertible in the driveway alongside an expensive-looking SUV I didn't recognize. I quietly moved to the top of the stairs and listened as Jessica led a couple through the house. As you can see, we've recently completed extensive renovations, she was saying, her voice dripping with pride. The kitchen is brand new, all custom cabinetry. It's beautiful work, a woman's voice replied. When would we be able to close? I can do a cash deal within 10 days, Jessica said eagerly. I'm motivated to sell quickly. I felt sick. Jessica was already showing the house to buyers, taking credit for all my work and planning to pocket the profits from my labor. I retreated to the bedroom and continued packing, my mind racing. If Jessica was this desperate to sell quickly, her gambling debts must be even worse than Martha had suggested. That evening, as I was loading boxes into my car, a moving truck pulled into the driveway, followed by my parents' sedan. My mother emerged first, her face set in grim determination. My father followed, refusing to meet my eyes. We've brought movers to help you finish up, my mother announced. You need to be out tonight. But you said I had 48 hours, I protested. That gives me until tomorrow evening. Plans have changed. Jessica's buyers want another showing first thing in the morning. I stood my ground. I haven't finished packing. I've been taking pictures of all the work I've done for my lawyer. At the word lawyer, my father's head snapped up. But my mother stepped forward, her voice venomous. You ungrateful girl. After everything we've done for you, everything you've done, I couldn't hold back any longer. You promised me this house. I put $50,000 of my own money into it. I worked on it with my own hands for 6 months. And now you're giving it to Jessica without even a discussion. Jessica deserves it more than you do, my mother shot back. She's always known what she wants and goes after it. You've just coasted through life expecting everything to be handed to you. I was stunned by this complete reversal of reality. Jessica was the one who had bounced from job to job, always living beyond her means, always expecting our parents to bail her out. I had worked steadily since college, saved responsibly, built a good life with Jake until Jessica destroyed it. That's not true, and you know it, I said quietly. It is true, my mother insisted. I've always known Jessica was stronger, more deserving. You're just like your father, too soft, too easily taken advantage of. The family legacy should go to someone who can appreciate it properly. Her words confirmed what I had suspected, but never wanted to believe. My mother had always favored Jessica, had always seen me as somehow less worthy. The pain of that realization was almost physical. My father finally spoke up. Margaret, that's enough. My mother rounded on him. Don't start, Robert. We agreed. We agreed to give her until tomorrow, he said, but there was no real strength behind his words. He had always been this way, unwilling to stand up to my mother's stronger personality. The movers are here now, my mother said firmly. Tina is leaving tonight. I looked at the movers, 2 uncomfortable-looking men standing by their truck, clearly wishing they were anywhere else. Fine, I said, surprised at how calm my voice sounded. I'll be out in 2 hours. I finished packing in a blur of efficiency, taking only what was irreplaceable and personally meaningful. The furniture I'd refinished, the curtains I'd sewn, the artwork I'd carefully selected, all of it would stay behind for Jessica to discard or sell. As I carried the last box to my car, my father approached me alone. Tina, he began, but I cut him off. Don't, Dad. You've made your choice. He looked older, suddenly defeated. You don't understand the pressure. I understand perfectly, I said. You're choosing peace with Mom over doing what's right. You've always done that. He had no response to that truth. I got into my car and drove away from the house I had poured my heart into, not looking back at my father's diminished figure in the rearview mirror. My friend Heather welcomed me with open arms when I called her in desperation that night. "Stay as long as you need," she insisted, helping me bring my hastily packed boxes into her guest room. "I can't believe your family is doing this to you." Neither could I, really. The shock was still setting in as I collapsed onto Heather's couch, utterly exhausted. "What will you do now?" she asked, handing me a glass of wine. "I don't know," I admitted. "Diane thinks I have a legal case, but suing my own family." I trailed off, the very thought making me nauseated. "Family doesn't treat family this way," Heather said firmly. "Jessica stole from you, and your parents are enabling her. You have every right to fight back." I was too drained to think about it anymore that night. Sleep eventually came, but it was restless and filled with dreams of falling, of trying to speak but having no voice. The next morning I woke to a text message from an unexpected source, Jake, my ex-husband. "Need to talk to you. It's important. Can we meet?" I stared at the screen, conflicted. Our divorce had been finalized 4 months ago after Jake had suddenly accused me of cheating and moved out without much explanation. If what Jessica had claimed was true, he had been manipulated just as I had been. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop halfway between Heather's apartment and his place. When I arrived, Jake was already there, looking nervous and fidgeting with his coffee cup. "Thanks for coming," he said as I sat down. "I heard about what happened with the house." "News travels fast," I remarked. "Small towns had their disadvantages. Tina, I owe you an apology. A big one." He took a deep breath. "Jessica contacted me yesterday asking if I'd be interested in buying the house from her. She said you'd been kicked out, and she was selling it." I felt a fresh wave of anger, and it made no sense. I knew how much work you'd put into that place. So I started asking questions, and she got defensive. Then she said something about having done me a favor by showing me you were cheating. He looked me directly in the eyes. "But you weren't, were you?" "No, Jake. I never cheated on you." He closed his eyes briefly, pain crossing his features. "She showed me text messages from your phone. Conversations with some guy named Andrew. Plans to meet at hotels. It was all very convincing." "I don't even know anyone named Andrew," I said. "She made it all up." Jake nodded slowly. "I realized that possibility yesterday. After I pressed her on it, she admitted she might have fabricated the evidence. Then she tried to." He looked uncomfortable. "She tried to seduce me right there in my office. Said we could get back at you together." I wasn't even surprised anymore. She told me on the phone that she deliberately broke us up. She was bragging about it. Jake's expression hardened. "That's not all. After I turned her down, she got angry and started ranting. She mentioned she'd lost a lot of money gambling online and needed to sell the house fast to pay off some people who were threatening her. This confirmed what Martha had told me, but hearing it from Jake made it more real somehow. I'm so sorry I believed her, Tina. I should have trusted you, should have at least given you a chance to explain. 8 years of marriage ended because of my sister's malice. The pain of that was almost too much to bear. I'm not asking for us to get back together," Jake continued quickly. "Too much has happened. But I want to help you fight this. It's wrong what they're doing to you." His offer of help touched something in me. Maybe it was just having someone who knew the truth, who believed me. "Thank you," I said simply. I could use an ally right now. Over the next few days, Jake and I worked together, gathering evidence of Jessica's pattern of deception. He used his connections as a financial advisor to discover she'd been fired from 3 jobs in the past 5 years for embezzlement, all covered up by our parents' influence and money. One former employer was willing to make a statement about the $20,000 she had stolen from client accounts. Meanwhile, I visited my grandmother again, who was growing frailer by the day. Her doctor pulled me aside during this visit. "Your grandmother has been asking for you. She's insistent on making a formal statement about the house before—" He hesitated. "Before she's no longer able to. Her health is declining faster than we expected." The news hit me hard. Grandma Laura had always been a rock in my life, the voice of wisdom and unconditional love. "I'm arranging for a notary to come tomorrow," I told the doctor. "Will she be strong enough for that?" "I believe so. She's very determined." As I sat by my grandmother's bedside holding her thin hand, she squeezed my fingers with surprising strength. "Tina, I need you to promise me something," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Anything, Grandma. Promise me you won't let them take what's rightfully yours. Not just the house, but your dignity, your sense of self-worth. Your grandfather and I built that house with love. It should go to someone who understands that." "I promise," I said, tears welling in my eyes. "Good girl. Now there's something else you should know." She gestured for me to lean closer. "In the garden behind the old oak tree, your grandfather buried a metal box. The combination is your birthday. Inside is something that might help you." Before I could ask more, she drifted off to sleep, the conversation having exhausted her limited energy. I left with more questions than answers, but also with renewed purpose. When I returned to Heather's that evening, Jake was waiting with news of his own. "I've been looking into the ownership records for the house," he said. "Something doesn't add up. Your parents have been taking out equity loans against the property for years." "How could they do that if they don't legally own it?" I asked. "That's just it, they couldn't, unless they forged documents somewhere along the line." The implications were staggering. If my parents had fraudulently claimed ownership to obtain loans, they had committed a serious crime, and now they were attempting to transfer this fraudulently claimed property to Jessica. The pieces were falling into place, revealing a picture uglier than I could have imagined. My sister's desperation for money, my parents' sudden decision to give her the house, their rush to get me out before I discovered the truth. It all made a terrible kind of sense. I needed to get into the garden to find whatever my grandfather had hidden, but the house was now occupied by Jessica. I would have to find a way to access the property without her knowledge. As we were making plans, my phone rang. It was the director of my grandmother's nursing home. "Miss Andrews, I need to speak with you about a sensitive matter regarding your grandmother's finances," she said, her voice serious. "Is something wrong?" "I believe so. We've noticed some concerning transactions from her accounts over the past few months. Large withdrawals that she denies authorizing. We've been investigating quietly, and we believe someone has been accessing her accounts fraudulently." My stomach dropped. "My sister." There was a pause. "We have security footage of a young woman who matches the description of your sister Jessica, using a power of attorney document to withdraw funds from your grandmother's account at 3 different banks." "But my grandmother never gave Jessica power of attorney," I said. "Exactly. We believe the document is fraudulent. We've been building a case, but we needed someone from the family to come forward before we could take it to the authorities." This was a new level of betrayal. Jessica wasn't just trying to steal my house. She had been systematically stealing from our vulnerable grandmother. "I'll press charges," I said without hesitation. "Whatever you need from me." "Thank you. We'll need you to come in tomorrow to make a formal statement. Your grandmother's financial security and dignity are at stake." After hanging up, I relayed the conversation to Jake. His expression darkened. "There's more," he said grimly. "I just received confirmation from my contact at First National. Jessica has already taken out a second mortgage on the house using forged signatures for your parents. She got the money 2 days ago, $300,000. She's going to disappear with the cash, I realized. That's why she's in such a hurry to sell. I needed to act quickly. I tried calling my parents once more, hoping they would listen to reason now that I had concrete evidence of Jessica's crimes. My mother sent the call to voicemail. Minutes later, I received a text message. "You are dead to us. Stop trying to turn us against Jessica with your lies. You will regret it if you continue this vendetta." The words stung, but they also hardened my resolve. This was no longer just about the house. It was about justice, about protecting my grandmother, about finally standing up to the toxic dynamic that had defined our family for too long. I had been pushed to my breaking point, and now I was pushing back. The next morning, I met with the nursing home director and gave a formal statement about Jessica's financial exploitation of my grandmother. The police detective assigned to the case took detailed notes, his expression grim, as I laid out the pattern of manipulation and theft. "Financial elder abuse is a serious crime," he explained. "With the evidence the nursing home has gathered and your statement, we have enough to open a formal investigation." "What about my grandmother?" I asked. "She wanted to sign a statement about the house. The notary is with her now," the director assured me. "We've arranged for 2 staff members to witness the signing as well. Everything will be properly documented." I was allowed to join them afterward. Despite her weakened state, my grandmother's eyes were clear and determined as she signed the papers asserting her ownership of the house and her wish for it to pass to me. "I've done what I can," she said, squeezing my hand. "The rest is up to you, my brave girl." As I was leaving, the nursing home director pulled me aside once more. "There's something else you should know," she said in a low voice. "When we were reviewing the security footage, we noticed your sister met with someone in the parking lot after withdrawing funds from your grandmother's account. A man who appeared to be threatening her. Did you recognize him?" "No, but he had the look of someone involved in illegal gambling. We've included this information in our report to the police." This confirmed Jake's information about Jessica's gambling debts. She wasn't just greedy, she was desperate and cornered, which made her even more dangerous. I drove straight to Jake's office, where we had arranged to meet with Diane, my lawyer friend. On the way, I called Heather to check in. "Someone was at your apartment looking for you," she said, her voice tense. "A man in a suit. He wouldn't give his name, just kept asking when you'd be back." I told him I didn't know and he left, but it felt threatening, Tina. "Lock the doors and don't answer if he comes back," I instructed her. "I'll be careful." At Jake's office, Diane was reviewing the documents we'd gathered. "We have a strong case," she concluded. "Your grandmother's statement of ownership, evidence of the fraudulent power of attorney, the equity loans taken out by your parents without proper ownership. But moving forward means publicly exposing your family's actions. Are you prepared for that?" I thought about my mother's text message, about Jessica's cruelty, about my father's weakness. I thought about my grandmother's courage and her faith in me. "Yes," I said firmly. "I'm done protecting people who don't deserve it." "Then my recommendation is to file an emergency injunction to prevent any sale of the house until ownership can be properly established. We'll cite your grandmother's statement and the evidence of fraud." "How quickly can we do that?" I asked. "I can file the paperwork today. A judge should review it within 24 to 48 hours. Time was of the essence. If Jessica had already received money from a second mortgage and was planning to sell the house fraudulently, she might disappear with the funds as soon as she realized we were onto her." As Diane left to file the injunction, Jake received a text message that made him frown. "It's from your father," he said, showing me the screen. "He wants to meet with me alone." This was unexpected. "Do you think it's safe?" "I think so. He's always been weak, but not dangerous. I'll hear what he has to say." 2 hours later, Jake returned from the meeting, his expression troubled but determined. "Your father knows," he said, without preamble. "He's been investigating Jessica on his own. He found proof of her gambling debts. The forged documents, everything." "Then why hasn't he done anything?" I demanded. "Because of your mother. He says she's completely under Jessica's spell, has been for years. He's afraid if he stands up to them, he'll lose everything. His marriage, his relationship with Jessica. So he's willing to sacrifice me instead." The hurt was like a knife twisting in my chest. "He's a coward." Jake agreed, but he's a coward who's trying to help in his own way. He gave me these. Jake placed a folder on the table. Inside were bank statements showing large transfers from my parents' accounts to Jessica over the years, copies of loan documents with clearly forged signatures, and a handwritten confession from my father acknowledging his role in covering up Jessica's past misdeeds. "He says he can't publicly support you, but he wants you to have this evidence. He made me promise not to tell you he provided it." I leafed through the documents, emotions warring within me. Anger at my father's continued weakness, gratitude for this small act of rebellion, sadness for the broken family dynamics that had led us here. "This will help our case," I said finally. "But it doesn't change what he's allowed to happen." "No, it doesn't," Jake agreed. "But it might help us stop Jessica before she does more damage." We spent the rest of the day organizing the evidence and preparing our next steps. I would need to find a way to access my grandfather's hidden box in the garden, but with Jessica now living in the house, that would be challenging. As evening fell, I returned to Heather's apartment, exhausted but hopeful that we were making progress. That hope was shattered when I found the door ajar, and Heather sitting pale-faced on the couch. "She was here," Heather said as soon as I walked in. "Jessica. She had a key somehow. I came home and found her going through your things." My blood ran cold. "What did she take?" "I don't know for sure. She ran out when I arrived. but your bedroom is a mess. I rushed to the guest room and found my belongings scattered everywhere. The documents from the attic, the original deed, and my grandmother's letters were gone. Jessica had found and taken the only original proof I had of my grandmother's ownership. My phone rang. It was Jessica. "Looking for something?" she asked, her voice mocking. "You should have better locks." "Those documents don't belong to you," I said, keeping my voice level despite my rage. "They don't exist anymore," she replied. I heard the sound of a lighter clicking in the background. "Just like your claim to that house doesn't exist." "Jessica, stop. You don't understand what you're doing." "Oh, I understand perfectly. I'm protecting what's mine. And let me be very clear, Tina. If you don't back off, I'll destroy everything you love, not just some old papers." The threat hung in the air between us. "You can't win this," I told her. "There are too many people who know the truth now." "Watch me," she hissed and hung up. Minutes later, my phone chimed with a message. Jessica had sent photos of my grandmother's documents being burned, along with a one-word message, "Checkmate." But she was wrong. This wasn't checkmate. It was just the beginning of the endgame. I spent a sleepless night at Heather's apartment, jumping at every sound, wondering if Jessica would make good on her threat to destroy everything you love. By morning, I was exhausted but resolute. Jessica had escalated the situation by breaking into Heather's home and destroying evidence, but she had made a critical mistake. "She doesn't know we have copies," I told Jake when he picked me up early that morning. I had digitized all the documents as Diane had advised, storing them securely in multiple locations. "And she doesn't know about the police investigation into the elder abuse," Jake added. "Or your father's evidence." We drove to Diane's office to finalize our strategy. The emergency injunction had been filed and a judge was scheduled to review it that afternoon. If granted, it would prevent any sale of the house until ownership could be properly established. The real estate closing is set for tomorrow morning. Diane informed us, checking her email. "I've notified the title company of our dispute, but Jessica is pushing hard to complete the sale quickly." "She's going to skip town with the money," I said. "We need to move faster." "There's something else we could try," Diane suggested. "A more direct approach." Her plan was bold: confront Jessica at the closing in front of the buyers, the real estate agent, and the title company representative, present our evidence, and force her to acknowledge her fraud publicly. "It's risky," Diane admitted. "She could simply deny everything. But if we bring enough evidence and the right witnesses, it might force her hand." "We need my grandmother there," I realized. Or at least her sworn testimony. "And the police detective investigating the elder abuse," Jake added. "I'll see if the detective can attend," Diane said. "As for your grandmother, I'm not sure she's strong enough to be there in person." "What about her nurse?" I suggested. "She's witnessed my grandmother's statements and can testify to her mental clarity." Diane nodded approvingly. "Good thinking. Anyone else who could corroborate our claims." We spent the next few hours contacting potential witnesses and gathering our evidence. The police detective agreed to attend the closing, bringing documentation of the financial elder abuse investigation. My grandmother's nurse was willing to testify about her wishes regarding the house. Even Martha, my parents' neighbor, offered to come and speak about what she had overheard about Jessica's gambling debts and plans to sell the house. By late afternoon, our plan was taking shape. But there was still one crucial piece missing: whatever my grandfather had hidden in the garden behind the oak tree. "I need to get onto the property," I told Jake. "That's too dangerous. Jessica might be there, and after her threats last night." "I'll go after dark," I insisted. "I know that property like the back of my hand. I can find the spot without lights." Jake argued, but eventually relented, agreeing to be my lookout. We drove past the house at dusk. Jessica's convertible wasn't in the driveway, and the house appeared dark. "She's probably out securing her escape plan," I said. "This might be our only chance." We parked a block away and approached the property from the rear through a neighbor's yard I had permission to cross. The garden I had so lovingly restored over the past 6 months was already showing signs of neglect. It broke my heart to see the rose bushes untrimmed, the vegetable beds I'd planted beginning to wilt from lack of water. The ancient oak tree stood at the far end of the yard, its massive trunk and spreading branches a landmark of my childhood. According to my grandmother, my grandfather had buried something behind it, something that might help my case. I felt around the base of the tree on the side, away from the house, my fingers probing the soil in the growing darkness. Jake kept watch alert for any sign of Jessica's return. After several minutes of searching, my hand struck something solid. I dug frantically, unearthing a small metal box, the kind used for cash storage. As my grandmother had said, it had a combination lock. I entered my birthday, 0522, and the lid popped open. Inside was a sealed envelope, yellowed with age, and a small leather pouch. I opened the envelope first, using the flashlight on my phone to read my grandfather's neat handwriting. "My dearest Laura," the letter began. "If you're reading this, something has happened to me and you need proof of our agreement. The enclosed document is the original contract between my father and myself, transferring complete ownership of the property to me, free and clear of any family claims. I've kept it separate from our other papers to ensure it remains safe. The ring in the pouch belonged to my mother. She wanted you to have it along with the house to pass down through the generations to those who would value family above money, legacy above greed. Choose wisely, my love." The document was indeed the original transfer of ownership from my great-grandfather to my grandfather, dated 1935. It established a clear chain of title that, combined with the deed in my grandmother's name, would be difficult to dispute. The leather pouch contained an antique diamond ring, clearly valuable, but more precious for its sentimental significance. It was a physical symbol of my family's true legacy, not the house itself, but the values it represented. As I carefully placed these treasures in my pocket, Jake hissed a warning from his position near the edge of the yard. "Car coming, we need to go." We slipped away just as headlights swept the driveway. From our hiding place behind a neighbor's hedge, we saw Jessica emerge from her car, accompanied by a rough-looking man I didn't recognize. Their conversation was heated, with Jessica gesturing frantically and the man looming over her menacingly. "We need to go," Jake whispered again. "That guy looks dangerous." We retreated to Jake's car and drove quickly away, the metal box and its contents secure in my possession. "What did you find?" Jake asked once we were safely away. I showed him the document and explained its significance. "This completes the chain of ownership. With this and the copies of the deed, we have solid proof that my grandmother owns the house, not my parents. And the ring." I opened the pouch and showed him the antique diamond, glittering, even in the dim light of the car. "It's beautiful," he said, "and it tells me something important about your grandfather." "What's that?" He knew this day might come. He prepared for it, left breadcrumbs for the right person to follow. He believed in you, Tina, even before you were born. The thought brought tears to my eyes. My grandfather had been a man of few words but deep wisdom. He had seen the family dynamics clearly and had tried in his way to protect what mattered most. When we returned to Heather's apartment, I found a text message from my father. It contained just an address and a time: Lakeside Park, North Entrance, 7 a.m. tomorrow. "It's a public place," Jake noted. "Probably safe to meet him." I wasn't sure I wanted to see my father after his cowardice, but curiosity won out. The next morning I arrived at the park 5 minutes early. My father was already there, sitting on a bench overlooking the lake, looking older and more haggard than I had ever seen him. "Thank you for coming," he said as I sat beside him, maintaining a distance both physical and emotional. "Jake told me you helped," I said, "though not enough to actually stand by me." He winced, but didn't deny it. "I've been weak, Tina. All my life I've taken the path of least resistance. With your mother, with Jessica." He sighed heavily. "It was easier to give Jessica what she wanted than to fight the constant drama when we didn't. So you sacrificed me instead." "Yes," he admitted the simple word, carrying the weight of a lifetime of failure. "And I'll never forgive myself for that." He handed me a thick envelope. "These are the original loan documents for the second mortgage Jessica took out. The notary stamp is fake. I confirmed it yesterday. The title company needs to see these." I took the envelope, surprised by this concrete act of assistance. Why now? Because Jessica crossed a line I can't ignore anymore. She's not just manipulative now, she's criminal, and she's dragged all of us into her mess. He hesitated. "Also because I found out what she did to you and Jake. Breaking up your marriage with lies. Mom won't forgive you for helping me," I said. "No, she won't." His voice was resigned. "But I'm done enabling destruction in the name of keeping peace." It wasn't the full-throated support I deserved, but it was something. A small step toward accountability, perhaps even redemption. I won't be at the closing, he told me as we parted. I can't face Jessica or your mother, but know that I'm on your side now for whatever that's worth. It wasn't worth much after years of choosing wrong, but I nodded acknowledgement of his gesture. As I walked away, I felt lighter somehow. The final pieces were falling into place for the confrontation to come. The real estate closing was scheduled for 9 a.m. at Meridian Title Company's downtown office. I arrived 30 minutes early with Jake Diane, the police detective, and my grandmother's nurse, Sarah. We were a formidable group, armed with copies of all our evidence and the original documents I had recovered from my grandfather's hidden box. The receptionist directed us to a large conference room where the title agent was already setting up paperwork. She looked surprised at our sizable group. I'm representing Tina Andrews, who has a legal claim to the property being sold today, Diane explained, presenting her credentials. The title agent frowned. I wasn't informed of any dispute. The sellers are listed as Jessica Andrews, with power of attorney for Robert and Margaret Andrews. That's part of the problem, Diane said smoothly. We have evidence that the property was never legally owned by Robert and Margaret Andrews and therefore cannot be sold by Jessica Andrews. Before the agent could respond, the door opened, and Jessica walked in, accompanied by an older couple. I recognized from my glimpse of them touring the house. These must be the buyers. Jessica froze when she saw me, her face cycling through shock, anger, and then a forced smile. Tina, what are you doing here? And with all these people, preventing you from committing real estate fraud, I replied calmly. The buyers looked alarmed. What's going on? The man demanded. Nothing to worry about, Jessica assured them quickly. Just my sister causing problems because she's jealous I inherited the family home. Actually, Diane interjected. There's substantial evidence that Miss Jessica Andrews is attempting to sell property she does not legally own, and that she has engaged in multiple fraudulent activities related to this transaction. The title agent stood up. I think we need to pause this closing until we sort this out. You can't do that, Jessica protested. Everything is in order. I have the deed right here. She slapped a folder on the table. Detective Collins stepped forward, showing his badge. Jessica Andrews. I'm Detective Collins with the Riverdale Police Department. We're investigating allegations of elder financial abuse against your grandmother, Laura Andrews. Jessica's face went pale. That's ridiculous. My grandmother gave me permission to manage her accounts. Sarah, my grandmother's nurse, spoke up. That's not true. I've been caring for Mrs. Laura Andrews for the past 3 years, and she has repeatedly stated that she never authorized you to access her finances. In fact, she has explicitly stated that the house in question is still legally hers and was never transferred to your parents. The buyers were now backing toward the door. We want no part of this, the woman stated firmly. Our offer is withdrawn until clear title can be established. You can't back out now, Jessica said desperately. We have a contract. A contract based on fraudulent representation, Diane pointed out, which is legally void. The title agent was reviewing the documents Diane had provided. These appear to establish a clear chain of title to Laura Andrews, not Robert and Margaret Andrews. I cannot in good conscience proceed with this closing. Jessica's composure was cracking. This is all lies. My parents gave me the house. They kicked Tina out because she's unstable after her divorce. Ask them if you don't believe me. We have a signed statement from your father, I said, quietly placing my father's envelope on the table, acknowledging that you forged documents to obtain a second mortgage on the house 2 days ago. The notary stamp is fraudulent. Jessica lunged for the envelope, but Detective Collins blocked her path. Don't make this worse for yourself, Miss Andrews. You don't understand, Jessica said, her voice rising. I need this money. They'll hurt me if I don't pay them back. The gambling debts, I asked. The shocked look on her face confirmed it. How did you know about that? You haven't been as careful as you think. Multiple people have overheard your conversations. Jessica's carefully constructed facade was crumbling before our eyes. She looked wildly around the room, seeking an escape, an ally, any way out of the trap closing around her. Fine, she suddenly exploded. Yes, I lied. Yes, I manipulated Mom and Dad into giving me the house I needed it to pay off my debts. But they went along with it. They chose me over her. She jabbed a finger toward me. They always have. The raw pain and desperation in her voice momentarily silenced the room. In that moment, I saw my sister clearly for perhaps the first time, not just manipulative and selfish, but deeply damaged, consumed by jealousy and insecurity that had twisted her into someone capable of destroying her own family for money. "Jessica," I said quietly, "it's over. The house was never Mom and Dad's to give. It belongs to Grandma, and she wants me to have it. You've committed fraud, elder abuse, breaking and entering, and destruction of evidence. Detective Collins has enough to arrest you right now." The detective nodded confirmation. "We'll be pressing charges for the financial elder abuse at minimum. The district attorney will determine what additional charges to file." Jessica's shoulders slumped in defeat. "She always loved you more," she said bitterly. "Grandma, Dad, everyone, it wasn't fair." "This isn't about fairness," I replied. "It's about honesty, integrity, and respect for family. You've broken all of those." The detective stepped forward with handcuffs. "Jessica Andrews, you're under arrest for financial elder abuse, forgery, and fraud. You have the right to remain silent." As he led my sister away, she looked back at me once, her expression a complex mixture of hatred, fear, and something that might have been regret. Then she was gone, leaving behind the wreckage of her schemes. The buyers and title agent departed quickly after that, the closing obviously canceled. Diane stayed behind to discuss next steps for formally establishing my grandmother's ownership and her wishes regarding the house. "It will take some legal work," she explained, "but with the documents you've found and your grandmother's statements, we have a strong case. Once her ownership is confirmed, she can transfer the property to you as she wishes." Jake put his arm around my shoulders. "You did it, Tina. You stood up for yourself and won." I leaned into his embrace, emotionally drained but relieved. "We did it. I couldn't have done this without your help." In the weeks that followed, the legal process unfolded much as Diane had predicted. My grandmother's ownership of the house was officially recognized by the court. Jessica faced multiple criminal charges and eventually accepted a plea deal that included restitution to my grandmother and a ban from handling anyone else's finances ever again. My relationship with my mother remained strained. She refused to acknowledge Jessica's crimes or her own role in enabling them. My father, however, took his first steps toward genuine change. He apologized formally in writing for his failure to support me, and for allowing Jessica's manipulations to tear apart our family. It wasn't enough to heal all wounds, but it was a start. The most meaningful outcome was my grandmother's decision to leave the nursing home and move into the family house with me. Her health improved dramatically once she was back in the home she loved, surrounded by memories of my grandfather and the family they had built. Together, we completed the renovations I had started, creating spaces that honored the past while embracing our future. The garden flourished again under our combined care, and my grandmother taught me the stories behind every plant my grandfather had loved. One evening, as we sat on the porch swing I had restored, my grandmother took my hand. "Your grandfather would be so proud of you," she said, her eyes bright with unshed tears. "Not just for saving the house, but for standing up for what's right, even when it was painful." She pressed something into my palm. It was the antique diamond ring from my grandfather's hidden box. "This belongs to you now," she said. "A reminder that true family legacy isn't about buildings or possessions. It's about values, courage, and love." I slipped the ring onto my finger where it caught the light of the setting Sunday. In that moment, I felt the presence of generations before me, their strengths, their failings, their hopes for the future. Jake and I were taking things slowly, rebuilding trust, and exploring whether a new relationship might be possible between us. The wounds of our past hadn't magically disappeared, but they were healing as we faced them honestly together. The house that was meant to tear my family apart had ultimately revealed the truth about each member's character. My sister's greed, my mother's favoritism, my father's weakness, all had been brought into the light. But so had my own strength, my grandmother's wisdom, and the power of standing firmly for what was right. As I look back on that terrible phone call that started it all, "You have 48 hours to get your stuff out," I realize it was actually the beginning of my freedom. Freedom from toxic family dynamics, from being the one who always gave in, from accepting less than I deserved. Sometimes you have to lose what you thought you wanted to find what you truly need. For me, that meant losing the illusion of a perfect family and finding instead my own voice, my own boundaries, and my own definition of home. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who treated you unfairly? What gave you the courage to finally draw a line? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need encouragement to stand up for themselves. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the family we choose is more important than the family we're born into. Wishing you strength and peace on your own journey.